Good morning, everyone. We'll probably have a few more people that will be joining us, but we're going to go ahead and kick off our season 2 of Ask the Doctor. So season 1 of Ask the Doctor was 8 sessions with Dr. Jim DeMaine, which was extraordinary. And for this season, we decided that we were going to invite a different doctor each week. And so you can come back at this time. I believe it's the same Zoom link, but make sure you'll get an email when you RSVP. And we have an incredible season of Ask the Doctor, and it is starting today with Fred. He will tell you precisely how to pronounce his name because I always just get it wrong. And we have Dr. Gabor Mate. We have Dr. Ira Bayok, Lucy Kalanithi, Adrian Boise from the Cleveland Clinic, Tracy Gaudet, Sunita Puri, and I'm sure, and Anthony Bassas to talk about psychedelic medicine of all things. So a lot of incredible conversations coming ahead. And today we are with my friend, Dr. Ferdinando Mirarchi, or because I got that wrong, I just call him Fred. Thanks for being here, Fred.
Well, thank you, Mike, and thanks for having me.
So Fred is the founder of Mideo, and he is the Chief of Emergency Services for UPMC in the Northern Tier, and he's also the founder of the Institute on Healthcare Directives. He's been thinking about healthcare directives for a long time and has a lot of experience, but we're going to start with some of the basics. And most of you know these things, but it's always good for a refresher. So Fred, let's define terms. What is an advanced care directive?
Sure. So, and I'm going to keep these pretty general because I have a feeling people will ask questions about these, but advanced care directive, also known as a living will, these are paper documents that are legal documents that are supposed to protect your wishes and give you a say as far as if you were to have an end of life condition.
Perfect. And what is a POLST form?
So POLST is a little bit more in depth. POLST is a medical order. It stands for a physician's order for life-sustaining treatment. And essentially that is an actionable medical order, meaning people are supposed to follow it when they see it.
Got it. And what is a healthcare proxy?
So another great one. So healthcare proxy is a person that you appoint. And that's a person that you can appoint to make decisions for you at any point in time or based upon certain triggers or permissions that you give them to make decisions for you.
Terrific. And we think it's one of the most important things in the advanced care directive space to have an advocate.
Definitely.
Who's well informed. So how do we ensure end-of-life documents are seen and respected when we're in the ICU or just in general?
Yeah, so really important question. And to make sure they're seen, or how do you get them seen? You know, in my institute practice or our Mideo practice, we teach people to be their own advocates too. And essentially we make it so that they announce they have a document, that they have a Mideo, that they have a pulse, whatever they have, and that they clarify what their intentions are of that document. You know, that document can mean anything. It can mean to treat a person, it can mean to not treat a person, just based upon what's documented there. So more importantly, we make sure that they announce it and that they clarify what their intentions are and that they try and get the healthcare provider to actually read it, which is like a really, really concerning thing that providers don't read them. They just act on them.
Yeah. So if I'm not yet a Mideo customer and I have an advanced care directive, it's filled out, it's somewhere. I'm part of, let's say I'm part of a healthcare system or I have Blue Cross Blue Shield or something. How, right now, I'm not in the ICU. People listening probably aren't in the ICU. Maybe they have a loved one there. What's a best practice to ensure that it's attached to my medical record, that it's attached, that someone knows to look for it?
Yeah, great question. So I'm not the most ideal person to say, bring your living wills to the hospital. And the reason is because I do all the patient safety research that says bringing your living will to the hospital could be dangerous. But I do think your doctor should have a copy. I do think that your healthcare agent, most commonly your spouse, should have a copy, have access to that copy. I almost always recommend not bringing that document to the hospital and keeping it with your healthcare agent or your healthcare proxy and have them produce it when it's the appropriate time. because having those documents inside a hospital setting where you have untrained hands touching those documents can often result in inappropriate do not resuscitate orders being placed inside your medical records.
Wow. Okay. So this is a very important point for us to take note of. We'll get a little bit into that, I think, with medical stranger danger later on in the conversation. And just a note, anybody who has questions for Fred as we're moving along, use the Q&A function down at the bottom of your Zoom, and you can write in any questions that come to mind on this topic, or, I don't know, maybe you want to know what sports Fred loves. So moving on, how can we make sure when we create end-of-life documents that the right care will be provided at the right time?
So this is something that's very important as well. And many people who have documents believe that healthcare providers will know what to do with those documents. And we've shown time over time that they're not the most appropriately trained at that point in time to actually know what to do. So this is important. So to make sure it's again, you have to become informed, and you have to teach your agent or your proxy to become informed as well, so that they can act on your behalf, so that they can act to speak to your wishes, to know what you would want treated, what you would not want treated, and to know where to access that form. That way, if you're ever questioned about bringing that form in or producing it, that there's a quick access to it.
Yeah, so I mean, this comes down to having open conversations with the people in our lives, which you and I both think is so important and hard. So filling out your advanced care directive is not enough, and assigning a proxy is not enough. It's a great thing. Making sure that that person, your healthcare proxy, and as many people as possible know exactly what you want in as many situations as possible. Is that what you're saying in essence?
Yes, absolutely. In that you have to have many conversations. I don't know that everyone will capture every conversation to have, right? Because there are so many different things that happen to people, because we're all genuinely unique, right? Who may have a stroke, who may have heart failure, who may have COPD. So a good way to have that conversation is to make sure that the right care gets provided at the right time, and to make sure that your family, whoever you're having a discussion with, knows, one, that you're comfortable, that you're putting your trust in them to have these conversations and to follow up on these conversations when the time comes, but also to make sure that they're not either pulling the cord too soon or letting it extend too long. There's a fine balance, like in the middle, that I think patients really want to know that that these conversations are having their most impact.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so how can we promote patient safety to prevent medical errors with end-of-life documents and end-of-life treatment?
So that's a great question too. And that's a question that we published in a paper called Triad 6 and Triad 7, where we published a pause, and we called it a resuscitation pause, which it caused some reactivity in some sectors of the palliative space, because they felt that the word pause was a bad thing when you're talking about palliative medicine. But it really is no different than anything we do in other patient safety measures that we do. We do surgical pauses, we do procedural pauses, and so on. And it's really just taking a quick second to have a conversation. And we've taught that to providers. In addition, we teach it to patients so that they can act on their behalf. So again, when they come into a setting, to announce that they have a document, pulse, living will, MIDIO, whatever it is, to be clear what their intentions are of that document, and then to really clearly communicate what's happening here. Find out if the doctors think this is a terminal condition, or if this is something that's reversible and treatable at that point in time. And that way they can then kind of design a care plan, help be involved in the care plan, right? We talk about shared decision-making all the time, and they have to have the opportunity to be involved in that care plan and that decision-making, so that it is shared and that they feel that their input is taken and of value. So that's usually an approach that we take, and we try and spend a lot of time teaching our patients to actually be an advocate of and knowing how to have that conversation or facilitate that conversation to promote their safety.
Yeah. Okay. That's great intel. So I paused on this next question because of the word medical stranger danger, and it wasn't something I was familiar with, but we're going to go ahead and ask the question, but then you can give us some background on medical stranger danger. But how do we prevent medical stranger danger with end-of-life documents?
Sure. So first and foremost, medical stranger danger, if you remember when you were a kid, there was always McGruff and the crime dog and stranger dangers and everything like that. Medical stranger danger is not much different. Back in the day, your family doctor, your cardiologist, your lung doctor, whoever it was who saw you in the office and knew you really well would be that same doctor that followed you in the hospital and took care of you when you were most vulnerable and could advocate for you. You don't have that today. Today, patients they get me. They don't know me, and I'm a complete stranger to them. But after meeting you for a couple of minutes, I have to make decisions very quickly at times as far as in what direction to go. And oftentimes, that stranger combined with vague documents and not good agent information or patient information to help make a decision that's right for you will often choose a wrong decision. And sometimes that wrong decision can be in the form of overtreatment, which we got too aggressive with and maybe saved your life when it was a time we should have allowed you to die naturally, or undertreatment where we didn't provide enough care and treatment and cause harm. So very important term here, and very important for people to realize that medicine has morphed so much today that you don't really have the same advocates inside the hospital system that you once did 20 years ago.
Yeah. Now, I think it's obvious to people why undertreatment is a bad thing that wants to be avoided. There are a lot of reasons why overtreatment is also something to be avoided, and has a real negative effect, not just the finances of it. Can you talk us through some of the, the repercussions of overtreatment?
Sure. So, one, it's an error, right? It's a medical error. When you overtreat somebody, you essentially committed an act that they were not okay with, that they did not consent to. That in and of itself is a medical error that we have to start following up on and fixing, because it has impacts. You have a patient now who put their trust in a system that they did everything right. They signed this form, they signed that form, they tried to get into hospice or are in hospice, and then someone at one point in time panicked and sent that patient to a hospital that got overtreated. So you've now taken that patient's ability to die naturally and removed it, which is a very gut-wrenching thing. And when families have gotten to that point of making that decision that they're ready for it to end and to die naturally, and then you stopped it, you just remade that entire cycle of grief that they have to go to, that grief and suffering that they have to go through again. So it's really important that we get this right for patients who are dying, because guess what? Everybody's going to die, right? And we have an aging population that is growing at such a clip that many of these patients, they've lived a full and very valued life and are ready. And for us to disrespect that is just what that word is disrespectful. And it's an error that's causing harm to patients. And now that same error is now producing lawsuits, which we don't want to have in medicine. We want to prevent lawsuits as much as we can in medicine, because it just breaks that physician and patient trust. So we've reproduced a new error, we've reproduced new litigation, and at the same time, we're harming patients that really have just wanted to die naturally in settings of comfort with their family and friends. And we prevented that only to happen another time.
Yeah. And so the family feels the impacts of overtreatment, but so do the clinicians, right?
Absolutely.
There's great issues of secondary trauma, moral distress, and this is one of the reasons why it's so hard to find staff, and there's so much burnout and people leaving medicine, is because of overtreatment and the moral distress coming from it, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. So, and I've done this, right? I've publicly said this. I've done this. I've undertreated. I've overtreated, and no matter what, in whatever circumstance it has an impact. It had an impact to me. It has an emotional impact. It has a physical impact. It has a mental health impact. So that in and of itself, because no one wants to intentionally do wrong by a patient. No colleague of mine that I've ever seen involved in a malpractice case has ever intentionally said, I want to harm that patient. It's always just the mere circumstances of the clinical event that produces that situation. So again, it produces a mega impact on providers.
Yeah. Okay, so real quick, I want you to talk about Midio, but there's been a lot of controversy around advanced care directives, and are they effective? Are they useful? It's already hard to get people to do advanced care directives. And then we get this wave of information that they're not being, honored, they're not being respected. You've given some strategies to us, but talk us through a little bit of the controversy around advanced care directives.
Yeah. So all of a sudden there's this belief that, advanced care planning doesn't work. And quite frankly, I don't agree with it. I think there's lots of happening in advanced care planning. I think the typical end of life strategies maybe didn't work, but I think advanced care planning is way too young to say it doesn't work. Things need to evolve, right? You have initially a do not resuscitate order that came about, and then you had a living will that came about some 15 years later, and then you had a pulse document that came about some 15 years later. Now you have video that came about 20 years later. So everything has to evolve, and things have to develop, and you have to put quality measures in place for things. And if you look at just completing a form, that's not a quality measure. If you look at just the financial impacts of everything, that's not a quality measure. The quality measure should be what happens and it impacts the patient's care. And was it the right decision? Did we provide the right care at the right time? Did we give the medical providers the right tools to provide the right care at the right time? What we've done in the past, I don't think we've provided the right tools. I think you need to have combinations of tools to make sure that we actually can get this right for patients. And when all those things are in place, if all those things were in place and it failed, then maybe you have an arm to say, hey, advanced care planning doesn't work. But until that's done, I think people are just looking for a platform to speak on to try and say advanced care planning doesn't work. Advanced care planning works. It works for my patients, especially.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have so many thoughts on that, but we'll stick to you, and let's talk about Midio. You, after being in the emergency room and doing a lot of research around advanced care directives, but having a lot of experience at the bedside and in high trauma situations, you knew that there could be something better, and you created a whole new model. Tell us about it and how it works.
Sure. Well, first off, I got to give a shout out to Your Voice Directives and Patty and Sheila. They created my Midio backdrop here in my Midio cafe. So thank you to both of you. But Midio came from basically trying to do better. When I first started, I wrote a book on my experiences, and when I wrote that book, it did pretty well. It sold copies. It was called Understanding Your Living Will, and but then when I wrote the book, people said, "Hey, you have no research." So then I started doing research, and we formulated triad studies. So then as we showed that we could do research and show that there's a concern out there, then people would say, well, okay, you showed a concern, but now you're the town crier. You don't have anything to fix it. So then in 6 and 7 of triad, we produced the resuscitation pause. And then from there, people said, you can't use the word pause in palliative medicine. It's just patients won't like it. They're fearful that they're not going to get treated anyway. So you can't use that term. So then we started looking at tools. What can you do? And almost like Jetsons, right? You jump into the future, you bring this hologram back in to actually be able to speak to people. So then we thought of a way to bring scripted video into the clinical scenario in seconds, so that you could have Mike speaking for Mike at a time when Mike is most vulnerable, speaking to doctors about the care he would or would not want in language that they understood. And man, that had such dramatic impacts in our Triad 8 study. So, and then it got to that point where we said, okay, we got a solution. So people said, okay, well, you can't put it in the clinical practice. So then I opened the Institute and essentially started seeing patients and proving out different paths for billing so that people could actually see that this is a sustainable model, right? Because advanced care planning and palliative medicine have always thought to be money losers on the revenue side, not with what they save, the health plans and so on, but the revenue side. So I tried to build a model that was then sustainable so that, it could be a self-fulfilling prophecy as far as being able to generate revenues to pay for its expenses. So we did that. And then in addition to that, well, people said, okay, you can't scale. Okay, so then we took on scaling and we built Midio. So Midio is the first registered trademarked product that is in existence today. And hopefully soon I have another announcement to come out with Midio, hopefully in the next couple of weeks or so. But it is now a system that can use video decision tools to educate patients. It could use video and create medically created scripts for video that can be recorded in real time and then put up in a cloud and combined with advanced directives and pulse documents and so on, and be retrievable anywhere in the world in 5 seconds or less. So you now have the ability to be critically ill, unresponsive, not speaking for yourself, and have a doctor looking at your video in less than 5 seconds telling them what to do. So to me, that's a very transformative process. And when you say a process like that doesn't work, and you or not that process doesn't work, but that advanced care planning doesn't work, and you haven't vetted out these other processes, way too premature to say that, because I think taking the voice of the patient inside of a clinical setting is going to bring your most expansive benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. So Midio, and did you mention it's accessible by VR code, right?
It's called a QR code.
QR. Sorry.
Yep. And actually, if you're able to share your screen, I could show you a quick image of what it looks like, and participants can actually scan it if they wanted with their smartphone, and within 5 seconds they'll be able to hear and see a video of a patient coming in real life.
Got it. Are you not able to share your screen?
Well, let's see.
Go for it.
All right, here we go. There we go. All right, can you see me okay?
Yep.
All right, so now that is our RD cards that our patients get. And you can see it's kind of scripted with information. And we do this in a way to meet Joint Commission requirements and essentially provides useful information to a provider, such as code status information, stance on organ donation. Do they have a living will? Where is that living will? Do they have a pulse? Do they have a healthcare agent? And who to call in an emergency? And then with any kind of a smartphone, an iPhone 7 or above, I believe, and this is a 12, but you can literally just take your camera, scan that QR code, and a link will pop up, and that'll bring about a video. And for any of the people in the audience that want to try that now, if you want to try it and just see for yourself, try it and see for yourself. Otherwise, you can visit our website to take a look at it. There's an image up there as well that you can take a look at.
Right. So people can right now schedule an appointment, get a Midio Advanced Care Directive. That's correct, yes?
Yeah, it's correct. And
Great.
in time here soon, we'll be releasing a version on the App Store that essentially be, an iPhone or iPad based program that they can do it themselves.
Amazing. And so does this, is there a cost associated with getting a Video Advanced Care Directive via Midio?
So that's the beautiful thing that we're figuring out. And that's what I spent a lot of time on in the Institute, to try and build out billing paths. So as we train and credential providers to do this, they will actually be able to do this and bill payers, Medicare, commercial payers, and get reimbursed really good money to actually do this with a patient, because that's always been the talk before, right? Doctors don't get paid to do advanced care planning. People don't get paid to do it. Now you do. And you could actually be utilizing things like Midio or some other product like Midio to essentially do it so that you're doing the right thing for your patient and minimal cost. Like my local patients in Pennsylvania that I see, half the times, probably more 75% of the time, it's not even a copay. It's covered because their health plan wants them to actually get this kind of education and so on. Other patients, maybe a $15 copay. When you go see an attorney to get a living will and a healthcare power of attorney created, you're talking somewhere between $300 and $500. If you're downloading one from the internet, you might be downloading it for free or nominal costs or so on, but you're actually downloading the types of forms that are actually concerning in clinical practice. So remember I mentioned that advanced care planning was always thought to be a loser as far as revenue generation. Now systems can utilize something like this to make them self-sustaining and put back into the patients where that revenue reimbursement should go. Like when a payer pays for something, it's for care you provided to a patient. And this is care you can provide to a patient.
Let's maybe have you stop share screen so people can see your face once again.
Yep.
So today, I know that there's Midio's still fairly new and growing and will be accepted by more insurers and more health providers in the future. But today, does it cost something if I go to Midio, or maybe your healthcare insurance provider covers it, maybe not?
Sure. So with COVID, we've had lots of success in getting reimbursed by payers from all different states because of all the telemedicine restrictions that have been listed. So what we do today until the dust settles is essentially at our website, they go through our website, they make an appointment, they secure their appointment with a $399 fee, and then we bill their insurance plan. And if their insurance plan pays for it, then we reimburse the monies back to the patients. Quite often they're getting the Midio product and everything that we do as far as a clinical evaluation for anywhere between $50 and $75.
Great. And what about Medicare?
Medicare reimburses greatly for it. And Medicare was the typical prototype that essentially released its restrictions during COVID so that we can actually do this for patients. So we have patients in 40 states now, multiple countries, 40 states, and they find it very useful. When having conversations with their family, because the one thing that we do think that happens with Midio is we produce clarity, we produce comfort on both the part of the patients and family, and then we also produce confidence that someone's end of life or critical care wishes are going to get followed appropriately, because that's what people don't know. Because remember what you said in the beginning here, we've told people, hey, get these forms done, get these forms done. And now we're saying, hey, maybe there's a problem with these forms. We want people to have advanced directives. We want the appropriate people to have post. We just want to make sure that we get everybody's wishes right, which is why we developed Midio.
Yeah, absolutely. Now you can update your Midio, right? As frequently as you want, or?
So what we found is that typically we build the Midios to last a period of time. So if you're young and healthy, we build those video scripts so that they would last you a good 10 years time. If you're got some degree of a serious illness, then we randomize you, or not randomize you, but we schedule you and put you into our scheduling pattern based upon your risk stratification. So if you have a lot of risk, we're going to bring you back in 3-6 months. If you have minimal risk, we're going to bring you back in a year. If you're a run-of-the-mill patient, we're going to put you on a schedule of 1, 3, 5, or even 10 years, just depending on your age and risk stratification.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so Bob Hoffman is back for season 2. Hi, Bob, I'm the best question asker we have ever had. I asked a couple of his questions. Now, with Midio, you do work directly with a doctor or with a trained practitioner or clinician, correct, to create your scripts?
Yes.
They're not always going to get you, presumably.
I wish they could. and quite frankly, we built the app so that hopefully people feel like they are seeing me if they do it themselves. Got it.
But how long does it take? It's like 30-minute appointment, correct?
Pretty much 30 minutes. You've had you've gotten your medical evaluation, you've got your education and so on. And usually the rest of it is behind the scenes work that we do.
And then out of that 30 to 45-minute appointment, the video is delivered, correct? There's no follow-up. You capture it during the first appointment, correct?
Yep, we capture it during the first appointment with the telemedicine session, or if you have our app, then essentially you're able to do it as a DUI app, do it yourself after we have our session.
Okay, so with the app, and this is a question that Denise just brought up, will you still talk to an advanced clinical planning educator or a clinician, or is it completely DIY?
So we built it 2 ways. So for a young, healthy person, okay, and we've done this through a group of advanced care planning educators that we've created through Your Voice Directives, by the way. We've made it so that you can go through if you're young and healthy, and you're going to have one access to one limited script. Okay, and that's going to be an all type of treatment type of script. If there's going to be any type of revision to that script that we've generated, then we make it so that you get connected with an end-of-life doula or an advanced care planning educator that we call them today and certify them today, so that they can actually get you scheduled in a way so that we can have a more informative conversation. If you ever have a restriction in your care, you should have some conversation with someone who's going to be able to inform you of the benefits and risk of that choice you're making. Outside of that, if you're just going to create a directive, so to speak, we have that do-it-yourself model so that you can just pick the right choice so that it makes sure you get the right care initially, and then they can step back just like they will with any other type of advanced directive and contact your agent to then have follow-up conversations to see what the care should be.
Yeah. Okay. So what is Midio? And anybody who comes across Midio, I've found is like, why hasn't this existed? Now it exists. Why isn't it across the country in every healthcare system covered by every health plan? And I think it will be. But what does Midio need? What can you use? I know you've got a small army that's coming together, but how can we help you get this distributed?
Sure. Well, what we're doing here is great today, but getting people enrolled to the website, having them talk to their doctors about it, having them talk to their attorneys about it, and even question your health plan. Like, when we've had patients who we've done telemedicine, and there have been a few that we haven't got reimbursed for, we have them contact their health plan to say, look, this was a medical evaluation. Why hasn't it been covered? Because it takes 17 years after research to really see something come to market. And that's a long time. And I don't think patients right now have 17 years to wait for something like this to come to market. And if it's not me, then it's something else. But there should be some other tools that are patient safety tools that should be brought to market, brought to improve the safety and the technology, or use technology to improve safety. It's no different than anything else we've ever done in medicine.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Fred. Well, I think we got a lot of questions answered. We also got a little bit over time. And I'm seeing comments. People are actually texting me being like, this is extraordinary. How can I get involved? Go to the website. It is right here in the chat. It's just midiocard.com. And check it out and get in touch with them as well. If you have some ideas or you want to collaborate in some way, reach out to the folks at MidioCard. Thanks again. We'll see you soon, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thanks everybody for showing up. We'll see you next week with, I believe next week is with Gabor Mate, the author in the Realm of Hungry Ghosts, who actually is a palliative care physician. People know him as an addiction expert and a trauma expert, and one of the leading wise men or wise humans of our time, but he has a background in palliative care. So we're going to talk about trauma and end-of-life care and just glean wisdom from Dr. Gabor Mate. All right, thanks everyone. Thanks, Fred.
Thank you.